physical world stays on its own. That's my domain.
Welcome to Prism of Torah with Rabbi Esav Aaron Prisman, engaging Divrei Torah, packed with stories and practical insights. Find us wherever you get your podcasts or at prismoftorah.org.
Shalom Uvracha. This week's Parshat, Parshas Vayishlach, we know the famous encounter between Yaakov and Esav's angel, and they're fighting throughout the night. At one point, the angel is able to strike Yaakov's thigh, injuring what we know as Gid Anasheh, the sciatic nerve, which is the area on the thigh that actually holds the upper body. However, this whole encounter has a couple of questions we can ask. We know that the Midrash tells us that Esav and his angel, they represent the forces of Gashmis, of materialism. There's a Midrash Rabbah that says that's actually hinted in the words when Yitzchak says, Hakol kol Yaakov. The sound of the voice is Yaakov, which represents spirituality. When speaking, davening, praying, that represents spirituality. So their voice represents spirituality, and that's Yaakov's domain. On the other hand, Vayadayim yedei Esav, the hands, represents physicality in the world. That's Esav's realm. That's his domain. So if Esav really wants to defeat Yaakov, would it not make more sense that he tries to defeat him somewhere on his spiritual side? Why injure him physically? Or perhaps there's a deeper meaning to this sciatic nerve and the limping it caused Yaakov to have. Specifically, what is this Gid Anasheh anyways? And what does it accomplish by us not being allowed to eat it? What's the tamadika? What's the spirit of the law that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us from this historical event? So I want to share with you this idea that we said last week already, that Yaakov's mission in life was 100% spirituality. That was Yoshev Ohalim, but this was until a certain point. When he actually got the brachas from Yitzchak, the blessing, which included physical and Gashmias blessing, his mission became now two missions. The second mission was to inject spirituality into the physical world, elevating the physical per se. We saw that in his mission when we went to Lavan's house, when he was fighting now with the angel of Esav, and then later on with Esav. This is really what life is all about. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world in such a way that even our bodies are made of a physical side to it and also a spiritual side. The guf, the body, and the neshama, the soul. And the whole idea is for us to elevate our bodies with our souls and live a ruchnius life, a spiritual life, by elevating the physical and not by disconnecting from the physical. The Mesilas Yesharim says in the first perek that when a person's able to do that and takes the physical tools Hashem gave him over here and uplifts them with spirituality, the whole world goes up a notch thanks to his actions. And this is precisely what the angel of Esav tried to stop. The Zohar points out that the legs of a person represents those who support Torah. They take their money and they use it to support Torah, whereas the top of the body of Yaakov represents actual learning Torah, because Yaakov is Yoshev Ohalim. However, I want to extrapolate this idea to a more broad, general idea of what we're discussing now. We know that the upper body represents spirituality. The mind is in the head, the thinking, which is a very high part of the body. We also have emotions, which is the heart, also represents spirituality. And the lower part of the body represents physicality. The angel of Esav on purpose tried to hit the thigh, that area that represents the bridge, the connection between the two worlds, between the spiritual and the physical. And he wanted to say, no, I'm not going to allow you to try to uplift and upgrade the physical and inject it with spirituality. The physical world stays on its own. That's my domain. And he didn't want us to bridge those two and elevate it. And that's exactly what he was trying to do. The limping of Yaakov that he experienced after this injury, it represents this idea of trying to disconnect. And yes, Esav was willing to do that a bit. And hence, this is Ma'aseh Avois Siman Lebanim. This fight of Yaakov represents also our avodah throughout our life and throughout the worlds until we reach V'yasa Mashiach b'mihra v'yameinu. We see that the Zohar does tell us that the night represents Galus, we're in exile, whereas the morning, when the sun comes up, it represents when we're out of Galus and Mashiach comes. And hence this is hinted that they were fighting all night long until finally the sun came up. So too for us, our journey as Jewish people is always to try to elevate the physical and not chas v'shalom disconnected like Esav is trying to do. Not like all the commercials say in the Western culture, just live up, enjoy life, just enjoy the physicality as if it's an end. No, it's a means. It's a means that we're going to use it as tools to do spiritual things. And like that, we're going to elevate the physical. That's what life is all about. And in fact, I think that's hinted. That's hinted in the fact that wine represents the epitome of physicality. And every time we do something very Kiddush, like a Kiddush, Havdalah, on Pesach, on Purim, we always have wine. We use the wine for bris milah to make Kiddush on, 4 cups of wine on Pesach. On Purim, Bichlal, the whole mitzvah is to drink wine. There's a lot of mitzvahs to do with enjoying things physically, but the idea is to elevate them with a mitzvah, to elevate them by saying a blessing on them. I also want to add this deep concept that exactly the area of where the angel of Esav was trying to hit and succeeded to at least touch and injure him a bit, injure Yaakov a bit, is the area which I think represents either extreme holiness, meaning it represents to an extreme the idea of elevating the physical and using that part of the body to bring down the new neshama, which is the epitome of putting more spirituality into the world. On the other hand, as we know, it also can represent the epitome of doing things that are extremely impure. The decisions is in our hands to make the world a better place by elevating the physical with spirituality. I want to end with a short story. We have these family friends. This person who works in the bursa with the diamonds. This person was a pretty good person. He woke up for davening every morning. He went to a minyan, but he always demarcated his work in the diamond industry as opposed to his Yiddishkeit, meaning there was a clear demarcation. Then suddenly there was a huge deal that came through. I don't remember the amount of money involved. And usually he closes on Thursday because of Erev Shabbos, but this one time the client really wanted to meet on Friday afternoon. And the partner said, yeah, let's do it, just 2 hours. Come on, we'll make it in time for Shabbos. This person, let's call him Reb Mendel, he sat in his office and he told us, I just don't know. I just don't feel this is the right thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm making a mistake. How can I push it to the last minute? My Shabbos preparations should be more important to me. And he said, that's it. I'm sorry. He told the customer, he told his partner, I'm sorry, I can't do it. We cannot meet on Friday. To his surprise, the customer was okay with it. And he said, yeah, I respect that. We can meet on Monday. And the deal was still closed. However, this person, let's call him, as we said, Reb Mendel, said that he realized that point was a turning point in his life. He saw how many people were changed by this last-minute decision of his, not to allow the meeting to take place on Friday. It was a huge Kiddush Hashem that he only noticed the ripple effects of it later, how it affected his own kids, how it affected his partner that 6 months later, he slowly shifted to take upon himself to keep Shabbos. His kids became more serious and he feels everything was from this ripple effect of doing exactly what Yaakov was fighting for and Esav was fighting against. Have a good Shabbos.
This concludes another episode of The Prism of Torah. Thank you for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed it and learned something valuable. If you did, please subscribe to the podcast and give a 5-star rating. You can also find this podcast wherever you get your podcasts or our own website, prismoftorah.com, where we have a full archive of all our past episodes. We would like to thank Yona Vefa for the recording equipment and Eli Podcast Productions for handling all our post-podcast productions. Join us next week for another enlightening conversation on The Prism of Torah.